Good morning, Paul Mitchell family. How is everyone today? My name is Ryan Belmonte. I'm here on behalf of John Paul Mitchell Systems, and I'm already seeing from the chat, this is a global event. Faces from New York to Oregon to Canada. My friend Michelle from Germany is in the house, so good morning to everyone. And I would like to introduce someone that's working beside me today, the most talented haircutter that I've gotten a chance to work with, someone that I really love, a great business owner, a fantastic stylist, and someone that I like to call an overall threat. She's a great styler, great colorist, great hair cutter. Chelsea Shields, take it away.
Thanks, Ryan. Good morning, everyone. It's so amazing to see your lovely faces, or good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. We are so excited to kick off this Cut With Us party, and it's amazing to see some doll heads. It looks like you guys are ready. So my name is Chelsea Shields. I'm an international trainer and artist for John Paul Mitchell Systems. I also am a salon owner and work behind the chair full-time as well. And I just have a passion for hair cutting and a passion to share that, as I know Ryan does as well. So we have an amazing jam-packed hour and a half planned for you guys. We will be getting our hands in hair. If you guys are joining us, getting your hands in hair, I will be starting our time off together with a longer shape. Then Ryan will be adapting that and taking it shorter. So if you want to join me with a little bit of a longer shape, if you want to join Ryan with a shorter shape, we just invite you to do one or both. It's totally up to you. If you are observing, please know this class is designed for you as well. And we want you guys to take so much away from this. So being that it is your class, don't be shy. We have that chat box available for you. So any questions you have, any ahas you have, if you're seeing anything you love, let us know. We want it to be as interactive as possible in this virtual format. But without further ado, Ryan, cue us in on what the art of cutting hair and what the time we have together has in store for us today.
So our goal today for all of you is not just to show you or give you two haircuts that you'll take back to the salon and copy and paste on your guests. Our goal is to give you some inspiration, some insight, and a little bit of a better understanding of control. And so for me, the most frustrating thing is wanting to be able to create something and not knowing exactly how to do it. So again, today, when we talk about hair cutting, we're going to show you two different techniques, but I'd like for you to approach them more as an exercise, just like every haircut should be. What we want to do is share some insight and understanding behind our decision making so that you can go back to your salon and allow for every guest to have a bespoke haircut. And so when we talk about silhouette, we talk about technique, right? To directly affect the silhouette, we want to change our technique. So we're going to walk through today whether we use our elevation or our cutting line to control that. From front to back, the horizontal shape, we'll typically use over direction or our cutting line, depending on what we want to have more control over. Excuse me. And often we stop there. For me, the last piece is having in that decision-making process is understanding the proper proportions of the head shape. So we're going to briefly talk about them right now. For each shape, horizontally, there is a proportion that goes along with it that's natural to the head shape. And so the first proportion that we'll talk about is going to be square. The square proportion is parallel to the floor or the ceiling, but you could also find it on the head shape by drawing a line from the jawline to the hairline. This would be a square proportion. Round is temple to occipital, temple to occipital, and triangular is occipital to jawline. And so a rule of thumb would be, as long as our proportion is more horizontal than vertical, we're going to have our work be balanced. Why this is important is because it's going to help for our work to be visually appealing to the masses. So I'm going to take a deeper dive into that. You'll see today with Chelsea's haircut, when she's doing something a little bit more disconnected, longer and layered, that having that proportion through those two lengths is going to change the difference between salon reality and a much more creative haircut. So Chelsea, get those scissors out and let's dive in with them.
All right. Thanks so much, Ryan. I always learn so much every single time I listen to you and cut hair with you. So like I said, I will be kind of starting on a longer shape. It's a shape that I get requested a ton in the salon. So I just wanted to give you guys a fun inspirational way, just as I've been cutting the shape over the last year or so. And it is a classic one that we've cut forever, but I feel like it's become a lot more prevalent as of late. You might have heard it be referred to as a shag, and the kids these days are calling it a wolf haircut. So it's all the rage, and that's what you'll see me cutting today. I am going to be working with some wet tools as well to set me up to win, because I feel like having the hair perfectly prepped is going to set you up to win, and it creates an amazing opportunity for a retail opportunity with your guests. So you'll see me working with our Boomerang Restyling Mist. I live in Arizona. It's a desert. It's like the surface of the sun right now. So this is my favorite kind of cutting lotion, or just my go-to for making sure to keep the hair nice and moist, frizz-free and moisturized. It does contain velvet flower extract. So this is going to be the perfect thing to keep the hair in a nice, consistent moisture level so that I get a beautiful, predictable end result. The cutting lotion I'm going to come in with today, so I'll be using Boomerang Restyling Mist throughout, but I like to get a little bit more control from our velvet cream. So just a little bit of that, going to give me just a little bit of slip. Again, make sure that hair is not drying out on me so that I can continue to work quickly and efficiently. And today I'm going to choose to come in with a razor. So I feel like something that really sets me up to win with a razor is making sure that the moisture content in the hair is where it needs to be, so that I get that really nice slip and glide, so I'm not damaging the hair as I'm working with my razor. The reason I'm choosing a razor is I just want it to be very soft, very diffused, and have a really shattered, textured, organic end result. So that is why I'm choosing a razor. If you guys don't like to use a razor and you want to use shears, the dynamic of the haircut's still going to be there. You can still use the same sectioning. The way we over direct and direct the hair, you can still do that with scissors. So get creative with me. The one thing I will say that sets me up to win is I always check with my guest, are you comfortable with me cutting your hair with a razor today? Sometimes our guests have had a negative experience, and just kind of not just diving in and making them feel uncomfortable the whole time, but just checking in with them and then letting them know, maybe showing them that they've got a fresh blade. And that is what I feel like sometimes is one of the major issues, is people tend to use a dull blade. So then it tends to kind of maybe make the hair feel frizzy or kind of like broken. So a fresh blade, just checking in with my guest. And I'm going to start with a center parting. Of course, this is something that you could alter, but this cut will work out even if they style it slightly to one side or the other, if you just do that center parting. So center parting and a super easy sectioning for this cut. I'm going to zoom in for you guys just a bit here. And how I'm going to start this sectioning is just by directing the hair the way I know I want my sectioning to lay. So I'm going to be working with some curved sections. I was really inspired by our brand new Grounded 2 collection, and this sectioning lives there. It's a little bit of different approach to the haircut, but I was super inspired by the sectioning. So my first section I am going to create is in this top portion. It will be what is mainly the fringe, but I want to go beyond the fringe. So typically I would lay my comb on the head, really check out that head shape. The fringe would live wherever my comb leaves the head is where I start my fringe, because I know that that hair is going to fall forward. However, today we're thinking a little creatively, and I want to encompass more of the top of her head. And I know that anything that's behind where that comb leaves is going to fall to the side, but I want it to all flow seamlessly. So I'm intentional by doing that. And so I'm going to kind of aim right for the apex of the head for this first section. But keep in mind, it is going to be that section that is going to end up being her fringe at the end of the day. So a nice curved section. And then where I'm aiming for is about just that recession right there. So sometimes I'll put my thumb, and so I have kind of a target of where I'm aiming for. So just a nice curved section. It doesn't have to be too crazy, too dramatically curved. Of course, your guest's head shape, texture, and density will play a role here. But once I've got just that little curved shape that hits right into that recession, that's exactly what I'm looking for. And I'm just going to comb it forward. No need to like twist or anything. It's going to be one of the first sections I go for in the cut. So I'm just going to clip it forward. Now for my second section, I am looking to go about 2 inches deeper beyond the little point of where that section started. So about 2 inches. So just above the occipital. And I'm going to work with that curved vibe again, just getting that hair kind of going. And then where I'm aiming for in this section is just kind of right there at like her sideburn area, about midway. So I want to make sure that I get her entire front hairline, but I'm going to leave out around her ear. So I can place a finger there as a target, and then I will just go about 2 inches down, and I'm going to do a curved section and then end up right there by my finger. And then if you need to clean it up at all, feel free to. And this one, I am going to create a little bantu knot just to keep clean and organized. And also to visually be able to show you exactly what that section looks like. So it's kind of more of a horizontal panel, but it has that curved nature to it. The reason I like this sectioning is because often when we do a heavy amount of layering, we might end up with a hole or we lose length here. For this cut, I kind of want the dramatic, layering around the front, but still be able to maintain her length. This way I've maintained it because I know I have that hair over the ear. So I'm going to have a safety measure there in place. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side, and then we'll get to cutting. Ooh, excuse me. So same thing, just starting by combing that section forward. Combing the hair in the direction you want to go will ensure that you get that beautiful clean parting. Super easy. And I'll just kind of peek from above just to make sure I have balance. If you're in the salon, you can check in your mirror. And then just cleanly combing that forward. Securing, and then repeating that same sectioning on this side. So my finger as a target, combing that hair forward in the direction I know I want to go.
Chelsea, I love that you're going step by step with the sectioning and giving some tips. I think sectioning something, it's like, when you watch a professional sport and you see someone great doing it, it looks so easy, you think you go outside and dunk like they can. And I think it's one of those things that when someone sections nice and neat and clean, it looks like we could just go back to the salon and bang out this round section, but it's definitely a little bit of a different approach with the rounded section. So it's something to practice, like anything else. If you're having some challenges with sectioning, something that you can drill by yourself on a doll head, and something that I continue to drill because I think from day to day, I have more and less patience with sectioning and details and things like that. So it's that constant drilling and that constant repetition so that when I'm in the salon behind the chair, it becomes second nature.
Yeah. And I think the tools set me up to win too. Definitely using those invisible wear products, keep the hair manageable for me to comb through and give me a little bit of control. Now for this back section, because it is going to be a bit disconnected and I'm preserving length to make sure that I don't pick it up during my cut, I'm just going to do a quick little braid and then secure that as well. That way I know that until I'm ready to pick up this section, it's not going to accidentally get put into any of my other sections. The other big thing is making sure you have the right tools. So this is one of my favorite combs to really go in and create those clean partings. All
so
right.
Chelsea Donette just wanted to say that she loves that you're explaining your thought process as well. And I will second that. I think often we see some crazy sectioning in panels, and sometimes people do things just to look cool, right? But there's definitely a serious meaning behind these. So thank you for that.
Of course. So as you'll see me work through this cut, I've sectioned with a purpose. And I'm going to be really intentional not to accidentally pick up one of my other sections before I'm ready. So having those clips, making sure you're secure. I might even clip this second section kind of back out of the way because I'm going to be working through this panel right here. So again, just coming in with my boomerang, making sure I've got some nice slip and moisture to the hair. And here we go. So I'm going to be working with subsections that are parallel to her hairline. So you'll see them, they're going to be a little bit diagonal back. And this first section is going to dictate the entire haircut. So making sure that you've done a thorough consultation, that you're comfortable with where you're going, because once you cut this, this is going to dictate your entire shape. Also, suitability, which you heard Ryan speak to. This is a shape you're going to see me cut a little bit more aggressive today. But just know that this same technique will be great even if your guest wants to start longer. So I am going to be working a little bit with some more aggressive shortness, but know that maybe if you want to direct it further, you could work with the nose, you could work with the jawline. If you had super long hair, maybe you're going to even direct it like collarbone. So that's going to be totally customizable to you. But I'm going to be working for any of you guys that have that are the OG Paul Mitchell people. If you remember Robert's Across the Street, this is a huge inspiration for this haircut, and it's one of my favorite techniques. The reason why is over direction is going to preserve length. It also, when we over direct the hair, it's going to create softness as well. So all those things are going to work together in my favor here. So I'm going to be combing this across her face and elevating it slightly. I'm going to then come in with a little inspiration from Heather with my razor, and I'm going to start by actually removing some of the density here and creating some softness before I go in and create my line. So once I've come out and I've taken some of that texture, some of that thickness out so that I have a texturized end result, then I'll come in with my section and decide my length. So I'm going to aim for about her eyebrow there and just starting to etch and cut short to long. So this is going to, we always know that short hair pushes long hair. So we're going to have this beautiful curtain effect just by over directing that. Now I'm going to work through this whole top section the exact same way. So making sure that my subsections are a size where I can see through them so that I can stay with my guide, and they're manageable for me to hold. So combing that across her face, and again, coming in and working to remove some of that density before I cut my line.
Chelo, that's such a cool trick. I see Crystal Chavez in the chat is loving the removal of weight first.
Awesome. Hey, Crystal. Thanks for being here today. Okay, so combing that across, again, a subtle elevation. You guys can see that cutting line. So coming in, and it's super light. I'm not being aggressive. Just a super light touch here. And then working my way back, just staying parallel within that section and working all the way back through this first sectioning. So again, just coming in with that very like tip of my razor. And the more parallel I work to the hair, the less I'm going to remove. The more I start to turn my razor, the more aggressive it's going to be. So you're in control of that. I definitely recommend, if you've never done this before, to start more parallel. And if you had a guest with a coarser, thicker texture, then you could start to rotate that razor so that you could take out more if you wanted.
Hello, Erica Facili. Good to see you. She also loves the weight removal. Chelsea, this is brilliant. I really, really love it. And also just to keep everybody informed as well, is, you know, remember, Chelsea's using a razor, and like she talked about earlier, ask for permission first. If you did have to use a scissor with this, Chelsea, would you agree this is something maybe you would do dry and afterward as far as the weight removal?
Absolutely. You could just shift. You could shift that, and you could do more of your just solid shape. Maybe you're going to use point cutting. Maybe she has fine hair and you need to blunt cut it. Then once you get her dry, that would be the perfect opportunity to come through and add the texture.
Awesome.
And you could come through dry, maybe elevate it, and then work through once dry, the same exact way we're working through, but do it in a dry manner with your shears. So just a couple more sections on this side. I don't have as much hair I'm working with, so just because that section gets more narrow towards the back, but just staying with, you know, really combing the hair in a clean, organized way. And this is my last little guy from back here. And we know that, you know, when we are combing hair all the way forward, over directing, we are making it travel farther. So that's going to equate to a longer length, which is our goal here. So she's going to be shortest around her front hairline, and then longest back toward her apex here. So what that looks like, if I were to kind of cross check, is we have this situation going on here. So see that short to long, nice and diffused, so it's nice and soft. And then once I have that, I can take a little clue from my section, but then I'm done with this section. So I'm actually going to clip it away again.
Chelsea, Rick Barnes is asking how far back you were taking that section. Rick, I think you could see better on this angle.
Let's see. So actually, from the back might be better. Sorry.
Oh,
thanks for asking. So right here were those bottom sections, and then my top section hits right here. So I'll show you guys kind of side view here. So she's just looking straight ahead. Those bottom sections end here, the top section ends here. So kind of like right on the flat of the head if you were to lay your comb, only because I want some of this to cascade back just ever so subtly. All right, so we're going to work on the other side now. And it's very repetitive. So I've combed this first section that I'm done with back and out of the way. I'm going to work the exact same way with those sections that are parallel to that front hairline. I'm going to comb it across her face. And then I'm going to elevate, start to slowly and subtly remove some of that density first. And then I'm going to, again, being really careful not to pick up too much of that little guide there from the other side, and cut that short to long. So that's my little guide from the other side, and I'm just visually checking to make sure the side's not like way longer. Working parallel here, combing it forward. And also just be really mindful of where you're starting this texture. Because on this first section, if we go too aggressive when we start it, they're gonna have little short, little baby hairline hairs. So that first section, I'm a little bit more cautious But then as I get further back, I can be a little bit more aggressive with it. And there's my guide. And then just working through here. If you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Ryan is keeping an eye on it for me. Definitely ask them if you need any clarity, if you need to see a different view or angle. We do have some visuals for you guys a little bit later. So if you need to see a head diagram, we'll have that available for you. I'm a very visual learner, so those always help me. But just let us know if you have, or if you're having any ahas, if you can think of a guest that you want to try this on this week. We definitely want to see your work, so tag us in your work so we can see your amazing creations.
Chelsea, so far, unfortunately, I think you're doing such a great job. There's really not many questions, but I will keep you posted, girl.
Thank you, sir. So last section here that's being directed up and over the head all the way forward, removing some of that density first, coming through. And you can see that this fun shape is already starting to create that really fun kind of curtainy soft fringe. So even if you don't take anything else from this haircut, you have a fun way to approach a curtain fringe, a very heavy curtain fringe. So I'm going to move on now. Since I already have this section down, I'm going to move on to this lower section on the right-hand side of the head. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a clue from my first subsection, get this out of the way here. And I'm going to drop this lower curved section here. So working on this guy here, we're going to be working vertical to that front hairline throughout this section and just working parallel. So really similar to here, but just on the side of the head.
Chelsea, can I pause you briefly?
Absolutely.
So for one, everyone's loving it in the chat. Karen thinks it's so pretty. Michelle is loving your inspiration. But we have a question from Dawnette. She said, Chelsea, when you say across the street, it looks like it's just past the nose, correct?
Yes. And then you guys will be in control of that as well. We know the farther we over direct it, the more length we're going to preserve. And just depending on where you pull it, if you're pulling it here, if you're pulling it here. So you can totally be in control of how far you pull it. Great question. Just know the reason why. The farther, the more it has to travel, the more length we're going to leave. So if we don't direct it too far, we're going to preserve minimal length. The further we direct it, the more length you're going to see preserved. So you guys are going to see a little bit of that coming in now. So again, working parallel to that hairline.
And as Chelsea kind of noted too earlier, depending on your guest's length and density, you might change the elevation, not remove as much weight, or want it to be longer or shorter. So it'll be, making that assessment with your guest and making that decision. But like she said, over directing more for more length, a little bit less if you don't want less of an angle.
Perfect. So a few things to keep in mind here, as you can see, there's my guide. If you guys can see that, there's my guide right there from her fringe. So that's going to be my starting point. Then I get to control my ending point. So again, just knowing that this hair right here, we're going to have some length back here, but just decide, how aggressive do you want this length? Does your guest really want to make sure that they have this length preserved? Maybe they have a really tiny face and you need to open it up and you need to take out more. So this is going to be totally up to you guys. But what I'm going to do is I am going to then kind of stand on the other side. And I am going to be directing this all the way across. And I get to decide, I'm going to start here, but where am I going to end? So that's going to be totally up to you guys. I do like to preserve some length. So I'm just going to work really lightly and make sure that I still have some length there for her. And again, so that's directed all the way across the face. So then I'm going to be working parallel to that section. And it's kind of combing it more like diagonal forward and across her face. So one of the biggest things I will say with this haircut is your guest's head position. With you pulling it like this, they're going to have a tendency to turn their head with you. So just making sure that you ask for a little resistance and be mindful of whether they're moving or not. Because if they start looking toward you, then you're going to end up over directing less, which is going to mean that you are going to have, you're not going to preserve as much length. So I don't know if you guys can see that guide in there. I'm just following my guide. The reason why you're not seeing me take out bulk on these sections is guests tend to have, you know, not a lot of hair in this part of, you know, their density is usually really thin through here. However, if you did have a guest with a lot of hair, you could do that same technique that we worked with on the fringe section and take out some density before you cut your line, if that works for you.
So great, Chelsea. I just want to speak to everyone paying attention to her combing and her tension while she works with that razor. I think often people tend to get carried away with the textured feel of a razor and not pay attention to those details so much, but she's preserving tension all the way from scalp to ends, from top to bottom of her section. So I think it's going to really play an important role in the outcome of the shape.
Yeah, and just making sure that I'm just kind of combing everything with that section. So the section is going to kind of be an arrow that points to us where to go, so that you're kind of combing that hair over to the side. It's not up and over the head. It's just kind of wrapped around. And
beautiful work, Chelsea.
I have this last, there's probably two more subsections here. And you'll start to see that there's less and less hair. And of course, depending on if your guest already has some previous layers, depending on how short you take this shape, you might eventually run out of hair back here. But maybe they're doing a drastic change and they don't have any layers and they have one length thick hair. This is such a fun transformation for them. All right, so that is that. Once I have that, again, I want to say so nice and controlled that I'm going to clip all of this out of my way so I don't accidentally pick it up. And I think that's one of the key things with using a technique like working across the street is we only want to work with that one side of the head, right? So just staying organized through the process is going to set you up to win. So again, taking my clue, pinning that up and out of the way, and then dropping now my left segment. I'm going to stand on the other side of her head. And again, making sure that I have an even dampness here. And working parallel to her hairline. Combing that out of the way. Now the same thing is you just want to try to stay as consistent as you were on the right side on the left. So directing our fringe that way and then combing kind of diagonally forward and across, taking my little clue here and then just working to try to preserve that length. Now, what you can do is if you want to check it at this point, you could sneak a little from the bottom of your section, stand in front of your guests, and just make sure that your lengths right here are somewhat even. If they're not, I'm a little bit longer on my right side. I can just adjust before I move any further. Or on my left side, excuse me. So I kind of just did it by feel. It was about an inch shorter. So I just went in and reduced that just a little bit. Now just working through here. Very consistent, making sure that you are combing that section in a really clean and organized way, directing it across her face, making sure I can see that guide, and then just working to cut that short to long.
Mariana has a question. She said, would you recommend taking some bulk off on section 2 and 3, or would that create too much texture?
I think that's a great question. And I think that's going to definitely depend on your guest. I tend to find that right here in kind of that front hairline area, there's not a lot of hair. But if you had a guest with tons, absolutely, you could do the same technique where maybe you, get your section and before you incorporate it to cut the line, maybe you're going to come and you're going to take a little bit out. But you can see on her hair, see how sparse it is. So I don't really feel the need to do that. But if you had a guest that just had so much density that you couldn't even see through that section, you could come and start to break it up first and then comb it across, just kind of like we did in those first sections. So absolutely. But we all know that our guests have all different hair types, textures, densities. So that's a way to kind of just as the artist assess if you need to or not. And I will say that this cut is super cute on wavy or curly hair, and sometimes creating those kind of peaks and valleys within textured hair really helps those curls to come alive and be free. So that's something to consider. But this looks super cute just with a beautiful blowout too.
It's so great, Chelsea. I love watching this opposite side now, how you're coming in above your knuckle. That's always the side that I get caught up on with that razor. So just great work. Beautiful.
Thank you. So I'm going to show you guys, how far we've got here, and you'll really be able to see the shape coming into play. And that's the majority of the cut. We just have a little work to do to kind of tie in the front and the back if we so choose. You might have completely run out of hair, so that's up to you. But just kind of giving her a cute little shake here. Oops. And you can see that even if she were to just air dry this with her waves, it would be super cute.
So
but you can see that we've preserved, quite a bit of length here, but we went pretty aggressively short there. She's going to have a cute little curtainy fringe and just beautiful shaggy layers through the sides. And then you can see from that side view that, because our first section was from here to here, we have some of these shorter lengths, but we went short to long there. So we have this beautiful short to long, and then we have that second panel that was short to long as well. So the last thing that we need to do, and again, depending on your guest's density, length, texture, you may or may not need to do this, but something that I like to do to tie it in is because those sections came to a point right at that occipital, I can take that length as a clue. So just kind of taking the tip of where those two sections met in the back, and then I can section off all of this because this is already cut. So get this out of the way. She can have like a little top knot type thing. Can grab this guy. And then what I can do is work in a square fashion in the back. So what that means is almost like if I were to pull a drawer out of her head, I'll use a traveling guide to stay parallel to the back wall here, and then everything's directed back. What that will do is just tie this little bit of layering that we have in through the length so she gets a little bit of movement. Now, there's not usually a lot to remove. And like I said, you could choose to do this or not. But just coming through It's kind of like, we're just working with a layering technique. So just about 90 degrees from the head shape. And I can just come in and just remove kind of that corner there.
Chelsea, as you work through here, I'm going to take this next question.
Yes.
Mandy has a question. She says, I'm a barber. Is there anything you would adjust to make this haircut more masculine? Mandy, I think the obvious or simple answer would be to adjust your shape. And so as Chelsea worked around shape here by pushing the weight off the face, working more square, specifically in that vertical aspect, is always going to make anything that you do look a little bit more masculine. So whether it be changing your over direction, or rather than working this concave shape of shorter to long, working it flatter and more square will give a much more chiseled effect and more masculine shape to that.
Yeah, and I could foresee too, because I know guys are really rocking, kind of like longer mullets. I call them like Euro mullets. So I definitely think you could use a similar technique to this and maybe just go more aggressive with the that second panel. So there's a lot more layering in the front would be kind of an inspiration I would go for. So I've finished that left side, working on the right. So I have my center section. Now I'm working with my second subsection. The section 2 will be directed back to section 1. And again, removing just a little bit of, not a ton, but just that little corner there. Divide that in half, getting my third vertical subsection, and 3 will go back to my second section. So 3 to 2. And that becomes stationary from that point. 4 will go all the way back to 2. And then I'm running out of hair, so all of this will be just directed straight back, just to make sure there's no super long ones. And then we've created a little bit of movement and also just removed some weight by adding some subtle layers. So that is the cut. Joey, if we could get the head diagrams up, that'd be awesome. If you guys want to screenshot these, you can screenshot these. We're also going to drop them in the chat if you want to download them. So totally up to you. So from this head diagram, you can see that we have that, that top section, we have that mid panel, and everything's directed forward and cut in that across the street manner. We could get the next one. Here's kind of that side view of how we pulled those 2 panels on the top forward. And then we have that last section in the back where we directed it back in a square fashion. And then I think we have one other one. And there's kind of that back view of kind of where that top section hits, below the crown of the head. And then we have that square layering technique that we used in the back. For time's sake, I didn't think you guys would want to watch me blow dry hair. So I have a little pre-recorded video, if we could show that, on just how I approached styling this haircut shape. So again, coming in with that boomerang restyling mist, it works great on day 1, but it works great to revive the hair day 2, day 3. And then I'm coming in with our Invisible Wear Hydro Cream Whip. This is going to be just that perfect product to add some texture. It's lived in, it's undone, it dries down to a barely there product, but I really love it to build volume and texture within a wide array of different canvases. So coming in with just a flat wrap And you can see I'm just using my, my brush to kind of scoop up and start to blow dry away, and just working, wrapping that hair around the head with my Neuro Grip. That's my favorite iron. I did do a little bit of just kind of a power blow drying to, not make it too smooth, coming in with my extra large round and just beveling that hair back away from the face. And then I like a little volume in the crown. So you see me elevate that and blow dry it to give some fullness in the crown area. Coming in with my smoothing iron and just smoothing those ends for a really clean, undone end result. And then I'm working horizontally. I twist my iron 180 degrees up, and then I flip it and twist it 180 degrees down. And that just gives that fun little wave, kind of undone wave in a super quick and easy way. You'll see me do that same thing through the side here, just rocking it up and down, and it just gives that really subtle wave to the hair. Then coming in with my Express Ion Gold, I really love that 1.25 size. It's not too curly, but it's a small enough size that I can get some movement. And I just work in alternating ways. So taking those vertical sections, curling one back and then curling one forward. And then you'll see me come in again here right around the front hairline, doing those kind of rocker waves. So my goal here is just to create some undone texture. So I'm using my smoothing iron to create the waves, and then I'm using my curling iron in alternating directions, just so there's some different movement and texture going on within this shape. And then just really shaping it. You can bend that hair kind of away from the face. And this is a good thing to talk our guests through on some different ways that they can approach styling this haircut. So maybe they're more comfortable with a smoothing iron, maybe they're more comfortable with a curling iron. It's a fun practice to just kind of talk them through a few different approaches. You guys will receive an email after this as well, because I did do a little diffuse style. This is beautiful with wavy or curly texture. So you guys will be receiving that. So keep a lookout in your inboxes for a quick little, I think it's a 2-minute diffuse. So you can see what this shape looks like just left in its natural texture. So again, just working those alternating sections back and forth and just perfecting it with my Express Ion Gold curl. And I think I just have a couple more sections left here. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I can keep an eye on the chat as well. And we're just refining that. After you get that texture built in, just rough it up. I like to come in with my Undone Texture hairspray and just mold and shape. It's a great spray to inflate deflated hair. They add some volume. It's light. It's kind of like, I think of almost like a dry shampoo hair and hairspray mixed. So it's a beautiful combination, and it's a fun workable spray. And then at the very end, if you want, you could finish with a firmer hold finishing spray if you want. But I love that Undone finishing spray just to create this organic shaggy vibe. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this cut. I hope you can use it. Again, if you guys create this, you can find me on Instagram at Abstract Hair Artistry. I'd love for you to tag me in your work. And we have a few poll questions for you to test your knowledge. So if we could get those poll questions. So would love to hear from you guys. What are some things you would shift to make this technique suitable to your guests behind the chair? Go ahead and click on your answers there. Would you make the top panel even shorter and less proportionate to the underneath? Maybe that's going to have more of like a mullety vibe. Or would you cut the top with a longer length and more proportionate to the external length? So I think of guests who really want to leave their hair longer. Maybe they're kind of just dipping their toe into this, new shape. Oh, let's see. Okay, so you'd go longer. I love it. And then I think we have another one. Thank you guys for participating. So what did I do to control my length from front to back? Did I control it with my cutting line? Did I control it with over direction, or did I control it with elevation? All right, got over direction. Woohoo, 100%. You guys are star students. Last one, and then I'm going to kick it off to Ryan. What technique did I use to change the silhouette? Get those answers in. Perfect. Layering for sure. All right, Ryan, thank you guys so much for cutting along with me, for watching this morning. And I can't wait to see how Ryan took this inspiration and where he's going to go with it.
Charles, that was fantastic. Giving you a little comb clap right here because we're on the Zoom, you can't hear it. Just a brilliant, brilliant job. Very salon friendly look, and thank you so much for that. But hey, let's get down to business. So this is the shape that we're looking to create. And with this pre-done here, this is a look that previously, this would be very intimidating for me to approach. And so it's something that's definitely a shorter shape. And without the understanding and true knowledge of doing what I was doing and cutting hair for years based on just copying, I had a hard time being able to create some of the things that I really wanted to. What I love about this shape and what it's going to do for us is give us an example of how we could create something a little bit avant-garde and somewhat creative looking in a really, really classic manner. And so again, today, when I talk about exercise, the creativity in this haircut is all in the details. This is what's going to make this look different. It's a very salon reality format. And the way that we're going to approach it is going to be in a very exercisal way, if you will. I'm not sure if that's a word, but it is today. Because I really want this to be an exercise of control and understanding, okay? And so for our sectioning on this second shape, we're going to basically mimic Chelsea's sectioning from earlier. We're just going to shift it a little bit and soften it. So whereas she came to a point in the back of the head, I'm going to make that a little bit rounder. And rather than come down into that front hairline, I'm just going to take that with a little bit of an arc. Right to the recession. So we're coming up and hitting that recession. Sectioning always with the wide teeth and then cleaning with the tight. This is just going to help keep me neat and organized. Drop your comb just to get a pretty little workout, get those legs awake. And we're going to groom this forward and just clip it off. Sectioning is something that's twice now. Extra workout.
It's Monday. It's Monday. Warming up.
Sectioning is something that, you want to be very mindful, believe it or not, of the scalp when you're sectioning. And so if you have a scalp that's a little bit loose, you want to make sure that you're not sectioning too tight. So you'll notice that I basically am just combing everything forward in a tight manner, but I'm not pulling up or doing a Zulu knot or anything like that. I'm just combing the hair forward and clipping it off. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And then, of course, check for balance. And again, that's something that in the salon, we want to utilize our mirrors. I know that as a young stylist, that was very awkward for me, using my mirror. And as I've matured as a stylist, I found that it's super, super important. So, I think sometimes you look up in the mirror and the client kind of laughs and thinks you're like staring at them or flirting with them. So just a quick heads up, and I let them know like, hey, I'm going to be using the mirror today to ensure and check your haircut for balance. So if I keep peeking at you in the mirror, it's nothing personal. I just want to make sure that you have a great shape. And so as we can see this sectioning, very much the same, it just doesn't come to an extreme point. Whereas Chelsea's was here, mine's a little bit rounder and more natural, okay? Okay, so starting in the back, section 1, we're going to take a vertical section. And so by choosing a vertical section with this technique, I'm going to work graduation into the shape. By choosing a vertical section, what I've decided is that I want my finger angle and my elevation to control my silhouette, which would allow for my over direction to control my length from front to back. I'm going to say that again. By choosing to work with a vertical section, I have decided that I'm going to allow for my elevation and my finger angle or cutting line, right? That will be the same thing, to control my vertical shape or my silhouette. Down a click here. And again, I'm just clipping this forward. So section 1, this is obviously going to be the most important section because this is now going to control everything. Okay, the rest of this shape will be based off the length and angle in which I cut section 1. So if I want a flatter shape, my cutting line should look more like this. If I want a very extreme shape or an extreme buildup of weight, my cutting line will look like this, or my elevation could look like this. But I want to go somewhere in the middle. So section 1, I'm coming in fingertips up. I'm establishing my length. And again, the length is going to all be how far or how low I want this weight to sit. Okay, so I'm combing out my section 1. Keeping in mind that the head shape is tilted down. Okay, so her head is tilted slightly down so that I can get my fingers in here. So you don't want to go too extreme with your cutting line, or it's going to create too much of a graduation. And I'm going to cut. Again, working with a vertical section, allowing for my elevation to control my vertical shape, as well as my cutting line. Comb down and check. So once we're cut this original guide, okay, this is my length right here. This is what I'm worried about lengthwise, because this is going to tell me where that weight line sits. And so when we talk about proportion and over direction, if I want to know what the length in the front is going to look like based on this first section, it's important to keep that proportion in mind. So temple to occipital is going to tell me that if I work this round around the head, I'm going to hit about the lip as I get to the front hairline. Does that make sense to everyone? So I'm just visually extending that length and understanding that that's going to hit just about that front lip line as I over direct my back 2 sections to soften that shape out. So I'm going to show you a preview of what that looks like. This length in here is this right here.
It's looking great. Erica says that the visual with the comb is so helpful. And Donette says that she loves that.
Awesome. So once I have this set, right, that's the hardest part of the haircut. So now it's all about being neat and clean and controlled and just copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. So each section now is going to be vertical, and you'll notice I have a slight curvature to my sections. I'm going to show you in just 1 second. And I'm going to clip these first couple off just so that you could really see. So it's a vertical section. There's just a slight natural curvature to this, okay? Now, when it comes to mechanics, body position and hand position, obviously my lower body, my left leg should be leading now because I'm working from center back to the left. I'm also lefty, okay? So on this side, my fingertips are going to be facing down with my thumb pointing in the direction in which I'm traveling. If you are righty and you're traveling to the front of the head, your non-cutting hand, you want to make sure that that thumb is pointing in that direction. And that's going to tell you the direction you're moving. It's also going to allow for you to see the section of the hair that you're about to cut. And that's the section that's most important. So we want to see the root of the section that we're about to cut, combing out from my guide. There it is. And I'm cutting up. So you'll see repetition is going to be key. And now, whereas I would typically move around the head shape if I was in the salon, today I'm going to just move my doll head and stay still so that you guys can see every section. And I want you to notice the combing each time, going back to the root, nice and clean. And then combing down. Section 3. I'm going to shift my doll just a little bit. And I'm going to continue on with a vertical, slight diagonal section. Again, depending on how well you can control the hair, you could or don't have to clip this hair forward. You could just comb it forward, okay? And work like this. The hair needs to be nice and damp though. I have also prepped my doll head with boomerang restyling mist. It's a great detangler in the salon. And I've also used Aokui Well Ginger styling treatment oil. That's going to give me just great control over the hair and allow for it to stay wet during the shape, while also preparing that cuticle to stay nice and skinny for my blow dry. Section 3, combing out from my guide. Chell, how's my camera? It's good?
It looks great.
Wonderful. So I'm combing out from the guide and then into it. Tight teeth for control. And the reason why I'm starting at the top of my section is because the weight line is what I'm looking to control most. Again, I always want to start where I need the most control. So you could tell just from my sectioning what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to establish a nice soft weight line. And you could tell that I'm doing that by using my cutting line and my elevation. Right now, my over direction is controlling my length from front to back. So we could call that our horizontal shape. After my fourth section, I will cross-check, but continuing on vertically, sectioning with the wide teeth, and then grooming with the tight. And you'll see by this repetition why I call it an exercise, because it's doing the same movement over and over and over again. The more that I can do this with the same exact body mechanics, the better chance I have of having a cleaner end result. Section 4, combing the hair straight out from the root, working with good tension. So let's have a talk about tension, right? Tension is something that's super important. And when I first started cutting hair, I thought it was so important to have the most tension of all time on every section. And again, what I've learned is because of wave pattern and also how tight the scalp sits to the skull, I want to be careful that I don't use too much tension. I want to use proper tension. Checking my horizontal shape. Just cleaning that just a little bit. And I can see that my shape's coming into play here. So again, we're working around on this side, so I have to keep turning my doll. That's too far, sorry. I have to keep turning my doll so that you guys can see. But again, in the salon, I would just be working around the head shape. So something to keep you neat and organized with over direction and your lower body position would be choosing points on the floor, whether it be with your chair, if you have a design on the floor in your salon. It's important to know your surroundings. So as I work around the chair, at this part right here, the corner of the chair would be about right here. Okay, it would still be in front of my left hip. And then as I get to the ear, that chair should be right at my waist. Section 5. Now you'll see with my cutting hand, I am not approaching the shape palm to palm. See how I'm kind of cheating out with my thumb and cutting with a flat, straight wrist? The reason for that is because if I work this section palm to palm, I want you to pay attention to the root. Watch this root right here. As I move to the back of the head where I would have to get into position to cut this palm to palm, it's now triangular. So I go from being on top of my section to getting in position. I've now unnaturally over-directed that hair back. So by taking my thumb out of the hole and just resting it side by side, I now have a flat, relaxed wrist, and I could come right in here and cut that section exactly where it lives.
That's so good, because when, like you said, this is an exercise that we're doing over and over again. It's so important to preserve our wrists and our bodies. And I love that you have her head kind of tilted down too, so that you're not doing a limbo, trying to get that graduation built in there.
I worked out enough picking up this comb today, Chelsea.
I used to have an instructor that would, if he saw us kind of doing a limbo or breaking our backs, he would come over and he would say, how long do you want to cut hair for? And I always think of that if I feel uncomfortable with my, body possession cutting, that I've got to take care of myself too. So I love that you're showing them those little tips and tricks.
It's very important, Chelsea. And again, when I say as a younger stylist, I mean as a less experienced stylist. I think it was very hard for me because we're in a profession, right, where not only is the client always right, but we want to create the most comfortable environment for them. It's a relaxing experience. Unfortunately, there are some things that we need our guests to do in order for our work to look fantastic. Right? So I think of a balayage. If you can't sit still, I can't do a great balayage. And the same rules apply for a haircut. Sometimes I need to maneuver the head shape to a certain position so that I could cut a line that's preferable to the outcome of their haircut. So I would say with confidence, make sure you're directing the guest on how they need to sit and exactly where that head shape needs to be.
And I just have to give Christine a little shout out. Your graduation is looking amazing. I see you.
Love that.
Yeah.
And my girl CC, what's up, Christine?
She's throwing you peace signs.
Again, another cross check. And I'm just taking off that corner. Remember, we're working with a flat scissor. So when we work a rounder, softer shape, we want to make sure that we're constantly refining that line so that it's nice and soft and there's no bumps or bruises along the way. We're now hitting this point behind the ear. And I am going to tie this off gently. Just a slight twist and clip. I think another reason too why it's so important to work clean in the salon nowadays, in a digital world where someone's constantly Instagramming or TikToking, I want to always look as professional as I can, because you never know who's watching, who's taking the video, and whose post is going to get 1 million views, and your section is really sloppy and terrible in the background. That is not a good look for you. Same sectioning, fingertips down for lefties, fingertips up for righties. Working with good tension, controlling my vertical shape with my cutting line, controlling my horizontal length with my over direction. And with each section now, again, coming in, combing from the back, making sure that I'm working round, and then tidying up that root, combing right out from the root with the tight teeth of the comb, and keeping my tension throughout. Cutting up on this section. Another thing you'll see, people will start to twist hair unnaturally. I don't know if you can see, oh, you can see, look at that elbow. Look at that little chicken wing up there, right? And so if I start to drop this elbow, watch my section. Oh, now I'm working horizontal because I got lazy. So keeping that elbow up and having the proper mechanics, these are the things that are going to control the outcome of your shape more than anything. So if that's something that you need to work on and practice, a mirror used to be your best friend, but we have phones now. And so If you are uncomfortable or not confident about the way that you're cutting hair, another great idea is to film yourself cutting hair. You'll start to see some things and some tendencies that you do. I know for me, like on certain techniques, I was elevating too low. And as I watched back on the video, I could see that and analyze it and realize that what I thought was working really well for me was working against me. Turn just a little bit. We're above the ear now. Our sections are still vertical with that slight curvature.
Mariana says, if you mix this technique with Chelsea's fringe technique, you got yourself a nice short shag, more androgynous look too, which I think would be super cute.
Next level, I love that.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what class is all about, right? It's opening your mind.
Yeah.
A haircutting technique is not copying a haircut, right? It's creating your own technique per client. And so depending on the density of your client's hair, depending on their head shape, let's say that your guest had a pretty flat head shape for this look. I might choose to go a little bit longer, or I might also choose to lower my elevation to create some more weight where I'd like for that occipital to sit. And so that's what's really cool about being a hairstylist. We're able to create illusions. So again, if my client had a flatter head shape, I could really work more like this and give her more of an angle on that graduation to create some more weight and have this sit in a different area of the head. Okay. Look how nice we're going here. Oops, sorry. Look how nice and natural we're starting to hit towards that lip line. Now in these last three sections here, not dramatically, but slightly, we're going to over direct backward. And the reason why I want to do that is because we want to create this little tear. See that little teardrop right there? Woo! That's those last two sections right there. Just a quick over direct back. And then what that allows you to do is style this. Oh, how cute. Nice and soft to the front to hit that lip. Cool. So these last two we can over direct towards. Now, if you don't want that teardrop or you don't like it, it's not your style, it's not your vibe, just continue on round with this side. Very simple, just continue on round. But this would be that area. And again, this is not an extreme over direction. It's just taking this section, which I believe is section 11, or I'm sorry, 12, and over directing it back to 11. So I'm just combing that back into it.
And Ryan, I just want to give you a heads up. It's 10:15, so we got about 15 minutes left.
Cool.
It's looking gorgeous.
Thank you. And then one more section here. Thank you for the heads up, Chell.
Yeah.
So this is our first side. Now, on the opposite side, we're looking to create asymmetry. We're looking to create a bit of length on this opposite side. So now we're flipping our hand position. So if you're lefty, you're going to be fingertips up now. If you're righty, you'll be fingertips down. But what we don't want to do is create an obnoxious shift in weight in the back. See how nice and natural that weight line dips down? So we're going to continue round with our first couple of sections. And as we get to this back corner here, this is where we're going to start to over direct a little bit more back, but not super extreme. Again, when working within these proportions, we want to make sure that we have balance. Chell, just check my camera angle on this one after, as I cut this section, and make sure they can see, okay?
Perfect. It looks good so far.
This is cool.
Yeah, it looks good. I can see your hands. I can see the section good.
Cool. So again, combing out from our guy. Now I'm cutting down on the hair. Still working clean from scalp to ends. And cheating that thumb out, just as I did on the opposite side. That's just allowing for me to get my scissors in a great angle there. Boom. So if we did 12 sections on the other side, it would be ideal to have 12 sections on this side. And I noticed Chelsea counting earlier. It's something that you can do, a little exercise to help you work with your balance. Just because this is an asymmetric shape, we don't want to lose the fact that we still want to have balance within the shape. Working through, combing from the root.
Beautiful. I love to see you can see your tension there perfectly, that you've got a nice grip on the hair, but you're not, pulling too hard. It's really beautiful.
Thank you, Chelsea.
I think one of the biggest ahas I ever had about tension was I always thought about the hair, but I think one of the biggest ahas I had was looking at the scalp, because some people's scalp has a lot more give and pull, especially in that nape area. So making sure that if their scalp is lifting up and away, that you adjust your tension so that it doesn't give a little bump in your haircut.
Yes, I agree. It's all about that tension of the scalp. And again, that's why I've decided not to work with too tight of a Zulu knot up top, because often you could also shift what your length is just by sectioning too tight. So when you're working with precision and you really need to hit a length perfectly, you want to make sure that you work with just proper tension, not only in your sections, but when you're clipping off your panels. Okay, quick cross check. And we're doing well.
Perfect. And what are you looking for when you're cross-checking?
So I'm looking for that roundness. And then starting to build into some length here.
Beautiful.
Can you see that? Chel, can they see that or no?
Oh yeah, yep. You've got some
Okay.
nods going. Yep. You have some light bulbs going off in the chat.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's looking gorgeous.
So again, as we work more triangular on this side, I'm not working vertical round so much as I'm working slight vertical diagonal forward. And that's just allowing me to mimic and remember that my shape is getting longer towards the front. This is now the opposite body position. So my left shoulder is now elevated, my left elbow is elevated, my right elbow needs to sit down. My fingers are controlling my cutting line, which is controlling my silhouette or my vertical shape. And my over direction still controlling my length from front to back. Now, if you had a guest that was very particular about their length in the front, and you were worried about it being too short or too long, you could switch this sectioning to horizontal. And then your cutting line or finger angle would be controlling your length from front to back. Your elevation would be controlling how heavy you graduate this shape. So again, as we get closer to the front here, we want to over direct slightly back more to make sure that we get that length. Now, if you rounded this out, rounded this corner, and you were still nervous about your length, you could still have pivoted to a horizontal section. But we feel good about our over direction.
Looking gorgeous.
Thank you, Chelsea. So this is our wet shape underneath. We can see that we're working round into triangular. Nothing too dramatic going on with that shape, which means that my over direction was clean. And now as we move to this top, you can take out this fringe section if you'd like, but how I cut this doll right here was, I cut her entire shape and then blow dried and then cut her fringe. And to me, that's the best way to do it. By previously sectioning out your fringe in a shape like this, you might have an opportunity that the hair starts to split out wide. So getting a natural root blow dry is going to help you to make sure that that doesn't happen. Blow dry that front forward, and then you could bring in your fringe.
Beautiful. Would you want them, is it possible, Joey, to get like a side by side of Ryan's head sheets as he's working? If it's possible, I don't know. Perfect. So you guys can see there on the left side how Ryan was working round with those vertical sections. And then on the right side, how he just was working subtly triangular. And then if we could get the next head sheet. This is that kind of mid panel that Ryan's working on now. And Ryan, you want to tell him a little bit about what you're doing now with that mid panel?
I do. So now we're switching to a horizontal section. Okay. So now our cutting lines controlling our length from front to back, our elevations controlling our technique. I'm pulling this section straight back and I'm looking at my guide. Where my guide is heaviest is where I want to cut this elevation wise. If I don't see a clear guide, it means that I don't have the same elevation lined up as I cut that with originally. Okay. And so as you take your section up, let me give you an example of that. As you pull this section out, you can see this is nice and clean. Can they see that or no? Sorry.
I can see it well. It's good.
This is nice and clean. If my section looks like this, I have the wrong elevation. If my section looks like this, I have the wrong elevation. I know that I cut that right here because that is where that looks the cleanest. So now I'm just horizontally continuing that shape. And you'll notice I'm combing up so that I don't elevate too low. And I'm coming in and cutting this horizontally. Now, if you need to tilt the head shape away, you can, but just be mindful of what that does to your elevation, okay? And then on this last front section here, I'm just gonna angle my fingers out just a little bit to make sure that I'm still getting that teardrop. So essentially, I cut this, we have a vertical graduation underneath and a horizontal graduation on top. Could you have just continued it all the way up? Of course you could have. But we wanted to do things a little bit differently today, and we wanted to get in the exercise of cutting vertical and horizontal so that we have maximum control over every section. What I would do as you work up this top, you want to just cheat a little bit and get some hair from the other section, and this way you don't have too much of a point in the back. So work this a little bit through the center. And now I'm cutting this on the palm, again, combing up on that section so it doesn't get too heavy. And if you wanted to check your graduation or was looking a little bit off, you would come in now with a vertical cross check to see what that line looks like.
And Ryan, if you don't mind, we have about 3 minutes left. Do you mind if I kind of tell them a few things that are coming up and some fun surprises they might have in their inbox as you're working?
Please do.
Perfect. So I do want to give you guys a little call to action. Here is a picture of Ryan and I. We were able to collaborate and be a part of our 2020 collection, if you guys remember that. But I wanted to lead you to palmangellpro.com. You can see that right there we have our trend collections, and living within that tab, you have all these collections at your fingertips. So my home play, because my haircut sectioning was really inspired from our grounded 2 technique, would be to go on palmangellpro.com and check out our grounded 2 technique. There's hair cutting, there's coloring. It's such a beautiful collection. So that is my home play for you guys.